As you guys know, we're here for the second session of the Mayor's Neighborhood Leadership Training. And that means, how many of you guys were at the first training? By a show of hands. That's fantastic. We're looking to build on each of these training sessions, so we're really excited that you guys are back. And we're really excited that you guys are back in this awful rescheduled weather that we're having. Or I say the reschedule because of the awful weather that we're having. So we really appreciate you guys fighting through the traffic. We appreciate you guys coming on a Wednesday, and thank you so much for being here today. So we're gonna get started here. So here's the agenda. Like I said, the mayor's going to be here to do this introduction, so I'm not actually going to be the one that's going to do it. I'm just going to talk to you guys about kind of next steps. We'll introduce the department, and if the departments who are presenting see the mayor walk in, we'll just turn it over to him when he walks in. So, which we're fine to do here. Really quickly, before we get started too far into it, I want to make sure that you guys see flyers up at the front for the neighborhood leadership training for Saturday, March 14th. That's session 3. Session 3 is going to be about development, and it's going to build on the mobilizing that Lipscomb's going to talk to you guys about today in the leadership portion. So with us next time is going to be Metro Planning Department and the Metro Codes Department, which we're very excited about. So today, of course, we're flipping the presentations. So the flyers also, before I move on, are up at the table. So flyers for March 14th, grab one before you go. Please share it with your neighbors. Everybody's invited to attend. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit before we go much further on the homework assignments. Do you guys remember what the homework assignment was for the last session? That's true, and Linda's going to talk to you guys about the leadership portion of it, but one of the things that Community Outreach Sergeant Jones asked you guys to do was to connect with your neighborhood watch group or your Community Outreach Sergeant. How many of you guys did that? Good, great, that's fantastic. Are you guys the neighborhood watch? Yeah. Fantastic. That's good. The homework still stands, so if you guys didn't connect with your neighborhood watch, please make sure you do that next time. We have our Metro Transit Authority here, who is actually going to give you the homework for the next session. So we're looking forward to that, Eric, when you get up here. All right, so that's the homework for just our Metro portion of it. And like I said, when Linda gets here, she's going to talk to you guys about the homework for the leadership session. If you guys will notice on the agenda, we have flipped the order. So we're going to have the Metro departments present first, and then we're going to have Linda Peak-Schacht and Jamie Dent, who's the Lipscomb alumni that is going to be presenting here today. At the end of the program. So we'll do the Metro departments first, we'll take a little break, and then we'll do the leadership portion. And partly that's because flipping the rescheduling on this training. So that's why we had to kind of flip the agenda a little bit on you guys. So with that, we're gonna actually turn this over to, I'm going the wrong way. I'm gonna go the front way. We're going to turn it over to Metro Public Works. We have Sharon Smith and Jenna Smith here from Metro Public Works, who's going to present to you guys first about their department, about how to get involved, information that they bring with you. Obviously, they've been pretty critical for us over these last week and potentially today, so we're really excited that they're here. And I don't think they're related, right? No. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to you guys.
No, but there's probably other Smiths here, I'm assuming. Are there any other Smiths? There's a free car. No. Okay, never mind. Am I going to be able to use this? Oh, no, that's the wrong direction. Okay. Well, my name is Sharon Smith, and I'm very happy to be here tonight to talk with you for a few minutes about the Metro Public Works Department. And the Metro Public Works Department is one of those departments that you can't hardly leave your house without interacting with us in some way. If you drive down a street, if you walk down a sidewalk, if you stop at a traffic light, which you should, if you have trash or recycling, and you should recycle, brush collection, all of that intersects with the Public Works Department every day, 7 days a week. And some of the areas that you're probably already familiar with, such as roadway maintenance, the waste and recycling, brush collection programs, our education and outreach, which is part of what I work on the Metro Beautification Program, and then, of course, all of our capital projects. I'm going to be talking sort of about the first 3 bullets, and then Jenna will be talking about the big last bullet point. Roadway maintenance is one of those things that you don't realize the importance of until you hit a pothole. You might be surprised to know that although we get probably about 800 calls a year, somewhere between 800 to 1,000 calls a year, citizens reporting potholes, our crews repair tens of thousands of potholes every year. They drive around Nashville on regular routes and repair potholes that you and I didn't even know existed. When a pothole is reported to us, they usually are fixed within 24 to 48 hours. Those are hard-working people. Another thing that you don't often think about is the miles and miles of roadway. You might think about it with paving, but there's 18 miles of roadway through Davidson County that are roadway maintained and cut. Particularly something that we've experienced the last few weeks is our emergency operations. A lot of people don't realize that you see those yellow TDOT emergency response vehicles out on the interstates, but Public Works also has emergency response vehicles that are here in the county and that go out to multiple accidents, spills, things like that. In the last 12 months, they responded to over 6,300 roadway emergencies. Sometimes the police call them in to help clean up after an accident and provide assistance because they've got the little blinker lights on there and everything that help. In the winter, times like this, we have our snow removal. When we first found out that the snow was going to, that we were going to have this event, our department is part of the Metro Emergency Management Program. When they activate, we activate. Our guys went out and started working 12-hour shifts around the clock. We have people out there that are still working 24/7 through this event to try and get the roads clean through the neighborhood. Another emergency that happened back a few years ago, I was talking to these ladies up here in the front before, was the flood of 2010. That's another really good example of where the emergency operations people get involved, and during that flood, or after that flood, 333,000 cubic yards. Now, sometimes it's difficult to imagine how much a cubic yard is, but if you did the math, you're talking about somewhere about 80,000 tons. And 80,000 tons, if you imagine a tractor trailer carries about 20,000 tons, you're looking at 4,000 tractor trailer loads, basically, of debris that was hauled out of, in front of people's houses. Was there anybody here who was flooded? No? Oh, yes. Well, let me tell you, when you came home and you saw all that junk in front of your yard gone, it is a good feeling. And that is part of what our emergency operations crews do every day to keep Nashville clean and safe. Now, my personal favorite area, which is trash recycling and also brush collection, I worked a number of years in our trash and recycling collection programs. Every day, we're going out to thousands of homes around the county in the Urban Service District picking up trash and recycling. We have about 127,000 customers that we service every week on trash, and a few less once a month on curbside recycling. In addition to that, we have 13 recycling drop-off sites throughout the county, one of which is at Cane Ridge High School, which isn't terribly far from you all, and we have 3 convenience centers. Now, are you all familiar with convenience centers? I know it sounds like a store, but it's not a store. A convenience center, sort of a funny state term for these facilities, is a place where you can take garbage, like if you had extra trash, or if you live in the general service district and you don't have trash collection at your house, you can take bag trash there. You can take recycling. You can take odd things like tires, mattresses, refrigerators. And we have a facility located off of Trinity Lane over in East Nashville where you can even take household hazardous waste. The good news is, later this year, we'll be opening up a 4th convenience center located near the sheriff's office off of Harding Place, Easel Pike, which will be a lot closer to those of you who live in this area, and it will also have a household hazardous waste facility. You can take pesticides, all kinds of stuff there to that location. Community beautification is one of those things that sounds really fluffy, but actually it is one of the most crucial parts of your community. And I think it's crucial because this is the area that I am currently responsible for now, so obviously it's very important to me. But community beautification is important for one really good reason. It ties to economic development. If your community looks good, if your neighborhood looks good, people want to live there, businesses want to move in there, people want to get out on the street, be active, engage with their neighbors. And part of what the Metro Beautification Division does is we help organize community cleanups. We also have education programs on litter prevention. We, most importantly, run a community service crew 6 days a week. We work with 3 courts here in Davidson County, and we have court-ordered community service programs. Some of those community service workers have supplement Metro employee activities, and some of them go out and pick up litter and illegal dumping. Now you can imagine if you have, misbehaved and gotten in trouble and the judge has told you you've got to do some community service, what better work to do than helping remove graffiti, picking up illegal dumping and litter, and actually making the community look a lot better. We want to give a little shout out here to the picture of the gentleman up at the top. Some of you know Lawrence Jackson, who was a long-time employee in Metro Beautification. He recently retired and leaves behind a legacy that we're all trying to uphold of helping Nashville stay clean, beautiful, and continue through the community service program to save millions of dollars for taxpayers a year. And I wanted to show you one last slide here. We really do want you to connect with Public Works in these areas, and some of the ways that you can connect are getting involved in our education programs, having somebody come out and speak to your community. We also have email reminders that you can sign up for on our website to remember your recycling pickup or your brush pickup. We will help you organize a community cleanup, supply all the resources that you need, and finally, feel free to call us at our call center, and we can provide directory assistance and help you reach the other departments and services in Metro.
All right, now Mayor Carl Dean is here, so he's going to say a few words and welcome everybody to the training. So, Mayor Dean.
Thank you. Tough drive. Well, the first thing I want to say is we need more transit. And we need it sooner than later. So that's been my position. Well, good evening, and welcome to the second of 4 neighborhood leadership trainings. And I am thrilled that you all came out on a night where, after a week of non-perfect weather, we seem to be going into another night of least of unperfect weather. And I appreciate everybody being flexible about being here. Before I go any further, I want to thank and recognize Jacoby Dowell and Karen Johnson from the council and thank them for being with us. And thanks to the Andrews Institute of Civic Leadership's alumni for making this training possible, specifically to Linda Peek-Schecht and Jamie Dent. The Andrews Institute alumni have been an incredible partner on all of this. Finally, thanks to all the Metro departments that will be with you as part of each of these trainings. I have said from the very beginning that a mayor has to hit 3 pitches, and a city has to hit 3 pitches. Education, public safety, and economic development. All 3 of those are connected. Safe neighborhoods are connected to good schools, and good schools are connected to bringing about more jobs in Nashville. I really believe that when you talk about one, you're really talking about all 3. At the last leadership training, the Metro Police Department gave you information about public safety. I hope you did your homework and found your neighborhood watch. Now we turn our conversation to infrastructure investments and how those issues are connected to your quality of life in the neighborhoods of Nashville and to Nashville's economic development. Investing in ourselves and our infrastructure contributes to our economic development. We have invested in parks, our water infrastructure, our road infrastructure, and our transit infrastructure, and we can't stop now. Since I took office, we've opened this Southeast Community Center, the McCabe Community Center, and the Paradise Ridge Community Center. I want to pause a second and talk about those investments. This building contains not only this community center, but also the largest, one of the largest libraries in Davidson County, second only to the downtown library, and the Ford Ice Center next door. This complex, which is called the Commons at the Crossings, is an example of the importance of public-private partnerships and what we can do together. The Predators helped us build the Ford Ice Center, and they practice there. And how many cities can say, how many cities particularly in the Southeast can say that they have an Olympian teaching at one of their facilities? Well, right here in Antioch, we have Scott Hamilton. Community centers aren't the only investment Metro Parks has made. As mayor, I've been able to see 40 miles of greenways get built, with 5 more miles on the way this year. Our investment in community centers, metro parks, and open space is important to our quality of life in neighborhoods. For all these things, we need clean water to function. We also understand that we have to invest in water infrastructure. Everyone has heard about our investment during the recession in the Music City Center, which was vital to continually expanding our tax base. But we have also known that during the recession, we had to improve water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. So we created the Clean Water Infrastructure Program, which was approved by the council in 2009. Just to take you back, and since I'm not running for mayor this year, I'll remind you that in 2009, we raised your water rates, and we established a stormwater fee. And the reason that happened, and really wasn't possible without really strong support from the council, is that when I came into office, we had 0 bonding capacity in the water department. You know, the water department is a little different than other departments. When we fund something in public works, or when we buy parkland, or we make an investment in greenways, we issue bonds, or we use our general revenue of the government to pay for that. The water department is a revenue generator, since you all pay water bills. But when I came into office, we had no bonding capacity, meaning that we didn't have any additional ability to issue bonds to pay for new infrastructure investments. This program has funded $500 million in capital projects for Nashville's water and sewer systems over the last 6 and 7 years. And in addition to doing the water rate increase, there was a small stormwater fee created that has funded $50 million in stormwater capital projects, which are paid for from that dedicated fund. And the stormwater issue was one, in terms of infrastructure, has been a huge issue in Nashville for years. It was one of those things that we talked about working on for a long time. We occasionally would use some money from the water department or public works budget to get some projects done, but we weren't going about it in a systematic way. So that when you would have a major rains event, you would have flooding on roads, you would have flooding in yards, you have flooding in basements. And my basement still floods. They haven't gotten to my area yet. But these stormwater projects that now go on across the city, and we've done about $50 million worth, will continue, and we'll continue to work on them for the coming years as long as we have this fee. Earlier today, I announced that Metro Water Services is working on a system that will protect downtown from another flood like the one we experienced in 2010, or even a bigger one. We can't afford to take the chance that the core of our city will get flooded like that again. So this system, which will include a removable flood wall and a new pumping station on the Cumberland River, is an insurance policy that we're taking out to protect against that risk. I think of it this way. It's a big investment, but when you think back to the flood, where the city, in terms of private property damage, lost about $2 billion. And when you think about what happens when the entire inner city business community shuts down, the risk that presents to our city is potentially devastating. So when you look at the ability to bond that improvement to create a system that will protect downtown from flooding, and you figure that's going to cost in bond payments somewhere between $6 and $7 million a year. I regard that as a premium that protects our city and protects us from billions of dollars of losses. We also know we have to continually improve the roadways that get us to and from our homes and schools and jobs. Metro Public Works is working around the clock to address sidewalk and road paving needs. They've been more than a little busy in the last week or so dealing with ice and snow. I want to highlight important investments in neighborhoods that have been critical to the interconnectedness of our city. In West Nashville, the 46th Avenue Murphy Road roundabout just opened this year. This roundabout is in the Sylvan Park neighborhood and it improves traffic flow and allows more on-street parking, and this project also resulted in more sidewalks. In North and West Nashville, the 28th Avenue connector, which is really the 28th and 31st Avenue connector, has united parts of West End and North Nashville since it opened in 2011. This road is just 1/3 of a mile long, but what it does is much bigger. It connects 28th Avenue in North Nashville to 31st Avenue in West Nashville with a bridge spanning over the CSX railroad that runs behind Centennial Park. The connector creates a better line of traffic for several key destinations, including universities and hospitals. It makes it possible really to think that the folks who are at Vanderbilt, Lipscomb, Belmont, are able to easily get to Fisk, TSU, and vice versa. It brings the city together. It also serves the new University Connector, which is a crosstown bus which connects 6 universities, Tennessee State, Fisk, Meharry, Vanderbilt, Belmont, and Lipscomb, as well as the important healthcare centers like HCA, Centennial, and Vanderbilt. And that type of investment, which I would argue is the same thing that is happening here in Antioch with this facility and the other facilities, results in more private investment. If you drive on Charlotte now, you'll see lots of investment taking place. In fact, right near to the 28th Avenue connector, a major investment is going into a new medical building there. The final infrastructure investment I want to talk to you about today is the one that's most on my mind, which is transit. Transit is one of the most important investments we can make in our city as it continues to grow and traffic continues to worsen. If you live out here, I bet you've experienced the growth firsthand in your commute in the morning or in the evening, and this is why transit is critical. We have to keep investing in ourselves. We've opened 2 bus rapid transit light lines on Murfreesboro Road and Gallatin Pike. The Murfreesboro Park and Ride is right here next to this complex. We'll be opening the next BRT line on Charlotte Pike and then another on Nolensville Road. We kicked off the STRIDE program, which is a partnership between our office, the mayor's office, Metro Schools, and MTA. And basically what that does, it lets all public high school students ride MTA buses for free simply by showing their school authorized ID. More than 20% of students with access to the program are using it. So not only does it allow them to get to school if they want to use the bus, but allows them to go to sports events, to stay after school for sports, to get to jobs, to go to cultural things. It's like sort of like Southwest Airlines. You're free to move about the city, which I think is an enormously important value for us. MTA received $1 million to upgrade approximately 100 bus stops all across Davidson County with new shelters. And you'll start seeing this spring. You'll start seeing more bus shelters throughout the city, and I think that will have a positive effect. There is nothing worse than waiting for a bus in the rain. In the fall of 2008, we opened the new transit stations, the new transit station downtown, the Music City Center. All of these investments are critical to keep Nashville moving forward. But we can't stop. You have to help advocate and ensure that we continue to progress in Nashville. The way I look at it is, and I really do, this is sort of the way I think about this, is for cities to succeed, they have to have enough confidence to invest in themselves. Other people can't invest in our infrastructure. We can do public-private partnerships at times that are creative, but we have to invest in ourselves. We have to believe that this is what it is, a growing, successful city, and that it will continue to thrive. But to make that happen, you can't sit passively by. Things have got to continually to be updated. Things have got to continually to be improved. And, you know, I think sometimes people live in the 1950s. We need to live in 50 years in the future in terms of the way we look at things, I think. The next training is Saturday, March 14th at 9 a.m. at the Sunny West Conference Center at the Howard Office Building, part of the Fulton Complex, 700 2nd Avenue South. So please make sure to be there. And I hope you have a great evening, and I'm sorry that I couldn't be here promptly to kick it off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I was glad to go after Sharon. I'm especially glad to go after the mayor because so much of what he was talking about is what Public Works is involved with these capital projects. And so it turned out to be a perfect break in what we were talking about. Sharon was talking about fluffy stuff, and I don't know that anyone's ever called a capital project fluffy. but you know, but kind of saying repeating what the mayor said, but capital projects are such an integral part of what makes a city have a high quality of life. Those kinds of infrastructure projects make major changes in the way people get around and how they do that. And you know, the mayor signed an executive order, I think it was back in 2011, on complete streets. It changed the way Metro Public Works does business. That executive order, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with it, it is online. You can go onto the nashville.gov and read it in full. That complete street executive order requires whenever we do a capital project at Public Works, we have to make it it's multimodal, so we have to make it as accessible as we can for all modes of transportation. So that includes walkers and bikers and drivers and buses. Now, not every complete street does not look alike. There's different characteristics of a road that allow for different types of multimodal transportation. But every time we do a capital project now, we're assessing that project for all modes of transportation. And I've seen the change. It's really exciting. And I'm going to use, the mayor talked about the 28th Avenue connector. I'm not sure if it's one of our pictures. It's not. The 28th Avenue connector is such a great example of a multimodal complete street project. That project has sidewalks, it's got transit, it's got separated bike paths, and if anyone ever travels around over there, it also has beautiful, beautiful foliage. We have a horticulturalist at Metro Public Works. That was also the result of one of Mayor Dean's executive orders to ensure that our city is, our landscaping is in order, that we're using native plants. She teaches not only throughout the metropolitan government, but throughout the community. She works with all the many neighborhood groups, many tree groups, garden clubs and things like that. And those issues are huge to quality of life. But the horticulturalist will go out and take pictures of 28th Avenue connector from time to time just to show us, look at how these plants are blooming and they're beautiful. So that's just a great example. And it's also a great example of how a community engaged with us during a capital project. We had several meetings that were very well attended. The connector has art on it as well, which we worked with the Arts Commission on, and the public actually designed the art that is on the bridge. So I don't know if anyone knows that. There's a lot of history to how we got to the artwork we got to, but it was designed by, those patchwork quilts were actually designed by citizens. So that's kind of a fluffy example of how citizens can get involved. You know, they can help with the art, but it also helps engage them and helps connect them to the city that they live in. As to capital projects, we have, and our engineering section has traffic engineers, we have people that are strictly involved with development, and then we have folks that manage capital projects. And then we also have just general civil engineers. But those folks work on these capital projects. The average budget that we've had, really with this administration, has been about $43 million a year in capital projects. And that sounds like a lot, and it is. But if you saw the needs list and the list of requests we get, it's not. So our department has to be really careful in prioritizing those projects and looking for people, or looking for other entities that we can partner with and hopefully get additional funding. A good example of that is Harding Place sidewalks. We're building sidewalks and putting crosswalks and all kinds of really exciting pedestrian amenities, and we're doing that in conjunction with TDOT, and actually Metro Water Services is also kicking in money. So we do try to leverage additional funds to get the most bang for the buck. So I did want to mention, though, that when we do capital projects, we generally will have a community meeting. We've always been in conversation with the council people and, of course, the administration. But a really good way to get involved with capital projects and things that you want to see in your area and changes that you feel would be good for the city of Nashville is to really come to places like this. Come to meetings when we have meetings about capital projects. Get and learn as much as you can about the city and the things that are going on, and then you can give your input. And the city does listen. Next slide. Intersections and signals. I just think it's interesting. When I started working at Public Works, I was always amazed by the numbers, but we have over 1,000 signalized intersections, flashers, and school zones in the city. That's a lot. It's like, that's a lot of intersections. So we have a section of folks that is run by the traffic engineers, and they are the ones that are doing the signal timing. So we get a lot of requests, and we come out and we look at all of them, and we work with the neighborhoods on them for additional stop signs, or another, or the light's too long, or soup to nuts, anything you can think about driving in the right-of-way. That's what these folks are doing, and sometimes it's complicated. There's not usually a right answer. Sometimes we also do traffic calming out of this group. That's when there's a neighborhood that the streets are, people are flying by, and they're worried about my kid's going to get hit because they're speeding. So there's all kinds of different things that we can do to work with the neighborhood to put measures in that'll help slow down the traffic. So that's just some example. And again, we're happy to always come out and talk to neighborhoods about specifically when they have concerns about safety in the right-of-way. Paving. There's 5,800 lane miles in Nashville and Davidson County. It's a lot of lane miles. Our paving, Don Reed is our paving manager, and I could brag on a lot of people, but I love bragging on him because you've never met a person more excited about paving than this man. I mean, his life is paving, and he is constantly looking for new materials. We started using something called Easy Street to repair potholes, the 1,000 requests we get on potholes Sharon was mentioning earlier. We use something called Easy Street now that is something that is specifically mixed for this climate. So, he's constantly, but if you're ever driving, you see a strange patch in the road, it's probably because Don Reed is out there experimenting with something. He always will get some new product, and he'll test it on the roads, and we'll see how it wears and tears, and then if it's good, we'll use it. So they just do an amazing job, those folks. I can't say enough about them, and they, too, have many more needs than they do funds, even though, especially through this administration, we've been very well funded in that area. And then bikes and sidewalks. I've kind of spoken about this a little bit, but probably people would be surprised. We have 1,000 sidewalks that we say a grace over in this city, 1,000 miles of sidewalks, 142 miles of bikeways. And bikeways under this administration we've never done the kinds of exciting things that we've been able to do in bikeways since Mayor Dean came in. Examples is we have the Music City Bikeway, which is a 26-mile. It goes from one end of the county to the other end of the county. So I've never done the entire 26 miles. I wish I could say I had, but I've done about 10 miles there and back. And it's unbelievable. It's such a great way to see the city. And it goes east to west across the county. That's something we've been able to do. We've also done piloting a bike box, which is kind of where you allow the bikes to go in front of the cars at certain intersections. We're piloting that to see how that works, and we've had some learning adjustments we've had to make. And we are also now having buffered bike lanes, which makes it safer for a bicyclist to be on a road that is heavily trafficked. We're now looking at, buffered bike lane is just where there's a space between the bikes and the cars. We're now actually looking at putting some barriers in physical barriers between the bicyclists and the cars in certain areas of town, and piloting that and see how that works. So we're doing some really cool stuff with bikeways. Oop. I don't know if I'm going to get into all this, but the sidewalks are complicated. We could probably spend an entire hour on sidewalks, and we're not going to do that today. But this just talks about, we do have a strategic plan for sidewalks, multiple community meetings, and if we are going to do one in the near future, which I'm thinking we may, that would be such a great meeting for people to come to and get involved. Where do you want to see sidewalks? It's the time to do it, because once we have the plan, and the plan, we work on that plan with council and the mayor's office and all the citizens, and eventually we come up with a plan, and we really try to stick with that plan, because there's always needs and there's always changing. And not to say that we don't alter it where it makes sense to alter it, but we really do stick to that plan. And we have something called the pedestrian generator index. I mean, there's all kinds of technicalities to where we build sidewalks. Pedestrian generator index is really looking, it's a formula-based thing. We're looking at where are the schools, where are the churches, where are the retail centers, where are people walking, where do people need to walk, where are the bus transit shelters, things like that. So again, sidewalks could be a whole nother session, but just wanted to let you know that that is a place where we seek, we want the input from those communities. And then really just to say connect and engage, as Sharon said, we are pretty heavy into social media now. This is pretty new for us, I think, within the past year. And we have a Twitter page and a Facebook page, and we're active on it. And we have a call center that people can call. And we also have an online form. And I'm telling you, because I read much of what comes in, people read every single thing we get. If it's a request for service, it is reviewed. Sometimes we send an investigator out because we're not sure what the answer is, but they're all read, they're all looked at, and we want to know what you all are thinking out there, because we can't be everywhere. So with that said, I know it wasn't as fluffy as beautification, but that's my nutshell about Capitol. And thank you all so much for coming.
All right, guys. Now, because we're a little behind schedule, we are going to fly through these departments and give you a really quick break, and then we're going to turn it over to Jamie. One of the things we did nip on this training is the departmental tables. They will be back on March 14th. So if you have any questions, keep them, and you'll be able to talk to them on March 14th. We just had to really condense everything down to keep us on schedule with all these training sessions, so we appreciate your patience. With all that said, here's Eric Beyer from our Metro Transit Authority.
Thank you, Courtney. I appreciate that. And truly, it's hard to follow the mayor, because I can't think of a stronger, better advocate who really encapsulates and is such a strong face and representation of transit and what it can be in the future. And his support is really incredible. Also want to thank, and so pleased to be in Jacoby Adele's district. And thank you for hosting us. It's also great to see Karen Johnson, and also have our board member, Freddie O'Connell, here with us this evening. We appreciate his role in what he does on our board, as well as our CEO, Steve Bland, is with us here this evening. So if you haven't had a chance to meet Steve, please make yourself avail that opportunity. I realize some of you have ridden the bus before. A number of you perhaps may not have, since it was yellow and it took you to school and there was some bratty kid in the back throwing spitwads. So I want to tell you about the Nashville MTA and where we are going, and the role specifically that you can play in our future. So I'm going to give you quickly an overview of our organization, perhaps give you some information you haven't heard in the past. And as Courtney said, I'm going to be around not only today, but also in subsequent meetings, so you can ask additional questions, and I will also introduce you to the homework that you're going to have for today. A little bit about the MTA. We serve Nashville-Davidson County on fixed route service, as well as our access ride service. We have the good fortune of having a fantastic board, 5 members, one of them here this evening. As I mentioned, our board of directors are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council. To give you a perspective of the size of the MTA, up until recently, we were essentially the equivalent of Nashville International Airport. They just achieved 11 million passengers. As you can see from here, consistently and every year, the MTA continues to grow. In this past fiscal year, we carried more than 10 million passengers here in Nashville, Davidson County. A little bit about our funding. It's various sources that come together, not only the fare box, but an important portion is taxpayer dollars that come through the Metro Council each year. A little bit about our ridership. As you can see through the years, we continue to grow. We had a little dip here during the flood, but a trajectory and a path that we're pleased to see that each and every year we grow over the prior year and want to continue that trend. A little bit about some of our services. Not only do we have fixed route services that run on a fixed schedule going down some of the major arterials and side streets of Nashville, we also have our access ride service, which is door-to-door service for those that qualify. They go through a third-party qualification process. This is an important part that fills in the needs as we cover the greater Nashville-Davidson County area. Another thing that we have, a real important takeaway for you all, is our travel trainer program. It's a free program that assists individuals and groups in learning how to navigate the transit system. Often, perhaps people may feel intimidated, or they need additional help or assistance in learning how to navigate the system. And so we have individuals that help specifically with that. So I want to offer that to you for an opportunity to either help your group or an individual that you may know that might feel a little intimidated about the system and how to navigate that and overcome that. And again, that's a free service that we offer to the community. Another important part of the MTA is our partnership that we've enjoyed through the last few years called our Easy Ride program. Some of the names up there you recognize, but it's a partnership with both for-profit and nonprofit organizations and businesses where they pay for a portion or all of their transit to get to and from work. The great news on that is there's positive tax implications for that. So again, I can give you additional information on perhaps how your employer or organization can participate in that program and offer transit as an additional benefit to employees. Important thing that some of you may have had the opportunity to ride or maybe you're not sure about. You may have seen it downtown but don't know exactly how it works. It's our Music City Circuit. It's a free circular that runs through downtown that runs 6 days a week, and it connects various parts of downtown. I'll show you the map. It's a little hard to see here, but you get the gist that it circulates through downtown, not only serving the Gulch, but also the Fulton complex, which is the purple route, and also the Bicentennial Mall. So if you take the bus downtown, you can leave from Music City Central, our main hub there, and get on the circuit and go through various areas of downtown. Or if you do take a vehicle and you park in one side of town, you can get aboard the circuit and go to another part and take advantage of the various activities that are going on through downtown. And again, the best news with that is it's free. Another important thing, and the mayor mentioned, is our BRT light system, which is, if you see these silver little stations here, basically what that means is that a particular service on one of our main arterials, our main routes, will make fewer stops and travel more quickly down that one particular alignment or one of our routes. The fantastic thing about that is it's done exactly what we had hoped, is that it really has bumped up ridership on Gallatin Road, where we started the program back in 2009. We've seen an 18.7% increase over that same corridor, an increase in ridership. Likewise, when we introduced Murfreesboro BRT Light, which serves this facility and comes right out here, there's a station outside this building, we've seen a 12% increase in overall ridership since the inception of that particular service. And as the mayor mentioned, we have 2 more lines that are coming this year. Another thing that the mayor mentioned is our STRIDE program, initiative out of the mayor's office, and our partnership with Metro Schools in support of the Metro Council. We're able to offer this fantastic benefit that we've seen nearly a 25% increase in youth ridership since we have introduced the program. Another one, a program that I want to make you all aware of, is our partnership with the Oasis Center, where we have developed the MTA Youth Action Team. So if you know of a high school student that would like to get involved in a program, they meet a few times during the school year. They also have a summer group. But what they do is they're our eyes and ears from a youth perspective in transit. So we have a closer interaction. They take on several various projects. Obviously, a lot of them have a social media piece to them. But it's what we see is really the future of transit and reaching out with that age group and getting really invaluable input as we look at the future of our system. Another important program working with Public Works is our Adopt-A-Stop program. You might have seen this sign attached to various bus stops. And something I want to offer the opportunity is, since we have not only thousands of bus stop signs out throughout the county, we also have a number of bus shelters, bus benches and shelters, and even more additional shelters coming online, as the mayor mentioned. It's an opportunity to adopt a specific bus stop in around an area that you may be for our thanks of maintaining that particular area. We have your name placed on the sign that goes there with the bus stop. We supply you with all of the materials to help maintain that. So we give you garbage clampers, we give you the vests so that people can see you out there depending on where you are or your particular stop is where you've adopted it. And then we also give you trash bags and gloves so that you have essentially a complete kit to keep that particular area clean. As you can imagine, with the volume or the mere size of the area that we cover, we really do need additional hands within the community to help keep Nashville clean. And so in exchange for that, you can sponsor or adopt a particular bus stop sign, and I'd be happy to give you more information on that. Of course, it's available online as well. One thing that we're proud of as we move to a complete hybrid fleet and look at cleaner technologies, we were the recipient of a $3 million federal grant for the purchase and operation of new equipment. So that's, again, moving in the direction of not only we like to go on our board, but what we hear from the community. Switching gears quickly, as you've heard, obviously, we're a part of a broader region, and the MTA oversees the operation of the Regional Transportation, or RTA, which covers 9 counties throughout. This is represented by the mayors and governor appointees for the 9 county areas. We're involved in providing a number of various services, most of them being commuter bus services that go from the outerlying areas in and out of downtown. The majority of the counties surrounding Davidson County, workers come into Davidson each and every day for work. The only county where you do see some reverse commute is down into Williamson County. These services are operated Monday through Friday primarily, and bring people to and from work. An important part of that too is the Music City Star, which is the state's first commuter rail system. And a little more about that. A number of you have, I'm sure, seen that. 6 stations that, again, travels Monday through Friday, going from Wilson County into downtown, where people have the option, of either walking to work, taking a connecting shuttle, or go on to the MTA service to connect with various routes throughout the city. A little bit switching gears about the strategic plan, and again, not only where a lot of these initiatives that I've just spoken about have come from, but really where our future is. Our strategic plan is a 5-year living document where we really assess our needs and what is the roadmap for the future of the MTA. Through that process that began in 2009 and just wrapped up, we saw a lot of things come out of that, including the BRT Light that I mentioned, the Music City Circuit, also expanding and offering additional services and new services, including the Crosstown service, in which the mayor mentioned. And the exciting thing, and the one thing that I want to make you all aware about, is the new strategic plan that we are kicking off. It's in motion, and it is an opportunity for you all here and those that are not here to get involved and add your voice to what transit looks like here in Nashville-Davidson County in the future. This is something that we're excited about, that really is building off the themes that we have heard recently, a lot of these coming from various studies, including the Nashville Vital Signs Report, Nashville Next, again, the Rockefeller report that many of you have heard and seen and read about, that basically transit is playing a bigger role, and the demand for transit and the role of transit in our communities is increasing, and we need to respond and plan for that accordingly. One of the things that many of you are familiar with or a part of was the Nashville Next process, and the important thing of where we're going to continue on is picking up where Nashville Next left off and some of the outcomes of that and the recommendations, and in inserting that and using that as a launching point for our strategic plan that will use a number of those findings from the Nashville Next process, which from my opinion was a really effective and one of the best projects I've seen as far as public engagement and really getting the voice of residents. So how are we going to do this? We're really looking at a bolder approach, as I mentioned, and looking at what is it really going to take and what does the future look like on a broader, more robust transit system. The important thing, too, is that it interfaces with the regional plan. So once people come from the outerlining communities, what does that look like once they enter into Nashville-Davidson County? Important piece of it as well is we really want to push ourselves. In the past, we have not probably been as effective as we might have been as far as public engagement. And one of the things that we need from you and those that are not here, and of course many others, is for you to lend your voice and to be a part of that process. So in order to do that, we're going to have various means as far as the in-motion process. And one of the things that I would like for you all to consider as part of your homework is this email address here, this inmotion2015@nashville.gov. Like for you to go and email us and give us your contact information, because what we want to do as we launch this process is engage you and have the opportunity to send a speaker to either your homeowner association group, to your neighborhood group, church group, youth group, whatever makes the most sense, where we can have a dialogue with you. Obviously, a lot of this is going to be online. A lot of this is going to be through social media as well. But we want to make sure that we begin that dialogue. And I want to encourage you, as part of your homework, first is to email us with your contact information, so we make sure that we begin that conversation and communicate the opportunities that you all can be involved and share with others as far as how they can do that. Another thing I'd like to challenge you all is just to check out the MTA bus system. Go online not only on our website, but also through Google Maps. Plan a trip. See what it would take to go from one area of town to another. Also, perhaps consider getting aboard the Music City Circuit. See what that's like. That's a great thing if you have company in town, friends, family, to get on board that and learn more about downtown and see the opportunities there. Another thing, as I mentioned earlier, is our travel trainer. We've had a very effective and a real great time getting groups together, maybe through your neighborhood association, homeowner association, through the council members as well. We've done field trips. I know Jacoby, we've done one with her group here from the mall. And it's a great way for people to learn how to navigate the transit system, how to, what it's like to get on board, work through that process. So those three things, go ahead and sign up. Give us your contact information through nmotion. Email us. Consider and get on board and ride the MTA. And the third is either get together with me or email me, and I'll be around to consider doing a field trip, either with your travel trainer or myself, and let's get a group together and better familiarize yourselves with the transit system here in Nashville. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, I just have to say, if you look around the room, we have a really great representation of neighborhoods from all over the county here on this very cold, traffic-y day. So I just want to give everybody a round of applause for being here today. Thank you so much for being here and working with us on this. We have one more department presentation that we are going to do, and actually they had a big day today. So it's I'm going to announce Sonia Allman from our Metro Water Services, who's going to talk to you a little bit about that, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to turn it over to the leadership portion, which we're really excited about. All right, here we go.
And yes, it has been a long day. It's been a great day, but I know you have a lot to do, so I will go through these slides quickly. I did leave my business card in the back, so if I go through it too fast and you miss something, feel free to email me and we'll go over it. make sure I know how to work this. Metro Water Services' mission is to provide drinking water, wastewater treatment, and stormwater management services to our community so we can enjoy a vital, safe, and dependable water supply and protected environment. So we handle all three of those divisions under one umbrella. We are an enterprise fund. As Mayor Dean said, we are a revenue-generating company. We operate on our own water and sewer revenues and the stormwater user fee. We do not receive tax money, so everything we do as far as capital investment and operating is all done based on the water, sewer revenues and stormwater user fees that we collect. We have an operating budget of about $119.1 million. Scott Potter is our director. We have a deputy director, John Kennedy, and then we have various divisions, customer service, engineering, operations, stormwater, and system services that all handle the various functions within Metro Water Services. Clearly, our water source is the Cumberland River. We're very fortunate to have that as our source. It is a very abundant source, and it's actually a very clean source. We have 15 billion gallons per day that pass Nashville. So we have not ever had to have water restrictions with the exception of the May 2010 flood when our K.R. Harrington water treatment plant was taken out of commission. We do have 2 water treatment plants, which again in the May 2010 flood was what saved us as a city. The Omahandra water treatment plant, which is our oldest, it is on the National Historic Register. It was built in 1889. It has a rating capacity of 90 million gallons per day, and it works with the K.R. Harrington water treatment plant, which was constructed in 1976, that also has a 90 million gallon per day capacity. So the 2 plants together send a blended water out into the community. So no one receives water from one plant or the other. It is a blended system that blends in a 60-inch pipe in the McGavick Elm Hill area, which many of y'all heard. We recently had a rupture on not long ago. It was just put back in service this past week, so that repair is done. Our system is back to normal now. We have 3,000 miles of pipe. That pipe is, are we turning something off? Okay. Press any other button to cancel. I'm like, there we go. Okay.
Never perfect. Never perfect.
So 3,000 miles of pipe ranging from 2 inches all the way up to 60 inches. We have 57 pumping stations, 20,000 fire hydrants, 64,000 valves, 190,699 customers, and we actually treat and send out approximately 101.2 million gallons per day of water. When you look at our infrastructure, it is aging. About 1,827 miles, 64% of our 3,000 miles of pipe is over 40 years old. So yes, we do have a very aging infrastructure, but it's not uncommon. Very many cities have the same issue when you're talking about water and sewer infrastructure. And we're doing a lot of investment in that infrastructure. One thing that people don't know about is the cost of water. People complain about how much their water bill is, and typically it is your lowest bill when you look at your Comcast bill and your light bill and everything else. You are actually paying 0.0031 cents per gallon of water that has been pulled from the river, treated, tested, and delivered to your home 24/7. That's a pretty good deal. As far as infrastructure, we have $95.9 million worth of projects that we have constructed in the past 8 years approximately. So we've got water infrastructure projects, capacity-related projects, new pumping stations. We currently have $14.7 million under construction, and we've got another $39.6 million worth of projects that are in design. So we've done a really good job of putting money into our infrastructure, and we'll need to continue doing that as it continues to age. We do send out an annual consumer confidence report. It tells you about your water, what's in your water. It lets you know about all of the sampling that has been done. It is online. The next year's will actually be coming out in May. So it will give you all the information about your water from January 1st to December 31st of the previous year. So be looking for that. You'll receive a postcard in the mail giving you a link to it on our website. One thing that people talk about a lot are pharmaceuticals and prescriptions in our water. So the biggest thing that we can do is keep it out of our water. So one thing that we ask people to do is to take unused and old medications to any of the police precincts. Do not put it in the toilet or down the sink. If you have to dispose of it at home, Put it in a bag with used coffee grounds or kitty litter, seal up a Ziploc bag, and you can throw it in your trash. We just don't want it into our water and wastewater system. As far as the wastewater treatment facilities, we have 3 wastewater treatment plants and our biosolids facility. Central is near Salem town. It has a 250 million gallon per day capacity. It was built in 1958, and that was our first wastewater treatment plant. Prior to 1958, all of the sewage of Nashville went directly to the Cumberland River. So when we think about that, we can really think about how much improvement we've had in the river since the early 1950s. We also have the Dry Creek, which was built in 1961, Whites Creek built in 1975, and our new biosolids facility that is near the treatment plant that takes the solids from the wastewater process and converts them into a fertilizer that can be reused. Again, we have about a little over 3,000 miles of sewer line. We have 110 sewer pumping stations, and we treat 168.6 million gallons of sewage per day. So that is a lot of sewage coming into our plant 24/7. We have 198,110 customers on the sewer side. And also with our wastewater system, you look at the pipe, 53% of our sewer pipes are over 40 years old. So again, that is an area that we are investing in, but it's also a great deal. 0.0066 cents per gallon that you flush to us. So that is something that you send to us. You don't have to think about it anymore. We take care of it. We make sure it's clean. We make sure everybody is safe. $19.5 million has been constructed. We have about 300,000 under construction and $84 million under contract right now in our Clean Water Nashville program. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about that. It is our overflow abatement program. We do have a consent decree with the EPA and the state to eliminate sewer overflows and to reduce combined sewer overflows to help clean up our city and the Cumberland River. Like I said, we didn't have a sewage treatment plant until 1958. So our system was designed to send everything to the river, and we are now having to backtrack and fix a lot of that work that at the time was best management practices. So we have quite a bit of money that will be spent over the next 11 years to take care of all of that. To prevent sewer overflows, one of our biggest issues right now are disposable wipes. Everything says disposable, and just because it's disposable doesn't necessarily mean that our sewer system can handle it. All of the wipes that go into the toilet, they may flush down and go away, but they are getting hung up in our sewer system, especially in our wastewater treatment plants. So the biggest message that we have is not to put anything into a toilet other than toilet paper. Q-tips, hair, disposable wipes, all of that needs to go into the trash. Also, grease. We have a lot of overflows that are caused by grease. You pour a little bit of grease down the sink, your neighbor pours a little bit of grease down the sink, before you know it, we have a huge ball of grease further down the line that causes a blockage. And that not only causes our sewers to overflow into the community, but can cause backups into private homes as well. So 2 big messages that we want to go is nothing in the toilet except for toilet paper and no grease, fats, or oils down the sink. Stormwater infrastructure. Nashville has the largest MS4 system, so we have the largest stormwater conveyance system in the nation. 473 square miles, 9,703 outfalls. Of all of our components, we've got about 38,000 inlets, 4,000 miles of culverts, channels, open ditches, and 3,000 detention ponds and best management practices. A lot of stuff for stormwater to take care of. As you heard, stormwater did not have a funding source until 2009 when we had our stormwater user fee. So we had a backlog. We have a lot of work to do, and we have various divisions that handle that. The one y'all are going to be most concerned with is our maintenance division. They restore the function of the existing system through repair, cleaning, stabilization. So they do ditch maintenance, masonry work, head walls. If you need to reach them, you can call 862-4600. That's who you need to call for flooding issues, any type of ditch issue, and they can get you in the database and get you worked in. What we don't do is we don't remove vegetation along creeks and streams. We don't mow grass in ditches or take fallen trees unless it's impacting water flow. We don't deal with mosquitoes or runoff from one private property onto the other, or home flooding due to underground springs or water. It has to be something coming from the street. Sinkholes, flooding because you're in a floodplain or underground springs. Those are things we can't do, but anything else, call us and we will send an engineer and investigator out to see what can be done. We've done about $49 million in capital projects since we've had the stormwater user fee in place, $5.2 million on Class C projects. And those were the projects that they're not home flooding, they are not flooding over roads, but they're still a nuisance to the property owner. They're a huge issue. And those are the projects that kept getting pushed to the bottom of the list. So we decided that instead of always working from the top, those that were rising to the top, we'll do those, and then we'll also go to the bottom and take some of those so that we can maybe work at it from both ends. So a lot of work has been done on stormwater. 42,190 drainage projects. We also clean streets. We've had 25,000 tons of debris removed through our street sweeping program. And through our quality division, we've been able to remove 24 streams or stream segments from the 303D list, which is a state list of impaired waterways. So that is showing that the work we're doing and the education we're doing and the help of the community, we really are cleaning up our tributaries, which all flow into the Cumberland. So the big message here is to keep our storm drains clean. Realize that anything that goes down that storm drain is going directly to the nearest creek or stream. It does not go to our wastewater treatment plant for treatment. Scoop your poop, pick up after your pets, and dispose of brush and leaves properly. Don't put them in the ditch where they can be washed away or cause flooding. We have about 2,478 stream miles in Davidson County, which means we have a lot of water. A lot of water means, at times, a lot of flooding. In flood recovery alone since the 2010 flood, Metro has spent $73.5 million on flood recovery, on our water and wastewater and stormwater. And we have another $60 million that we are spending on mitigation. So the 2010 flood was a huge lesson for all of us. We've learned a lot. We're moving forward. Like Mayor Dean said, we're about to spend $100 million on a flood wall to protect the downtown area. That's in addition to about $127 million that we have spent outside of the downtown area in home buyouts, buying 225 homes, the SAFE program, the NERV program. But one thing people need to know is everybody in Davidson County can get flood insurance. So if you are in a floodplain or even near a floodplain, I suggest you contact your insurance agent, talk to them about getting flood insurance, because just because it was a 500-year flood or a 100-year flood, it could happen at any time. We had another 500-year flood just in Madison in 2013. So it's something that you can't predict. We need to be aware, and be aware that you can have flood insurance if you live here in Nashville. So if you have any questions, 24/7, 862-4600, that is our dispatch. If you have any water, sewer, stormwater emergencies, you can reach us through the website, and my business card is in the back as well. Thank you.
We're very lucky to have Linda Peak Schacht again with us. She's not here just yet, but she's the founding director of the Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership at Lipscomb. She was here with you guys at the first training. She actually talked a lot about the collaborative leadership, and she's going to be talking to you guys about the homework and some additional sessions around that collaborative leadership. So she'll be here shortly, but before we do that, we're very, very lucky to have one of the other Andrews Institute alumni here with us. We have Jamie Dent. Jamie is a program manager, or the program manager for AmeriCorps Volunteer Tennessee, and obviously has been extremely busy responding to the state of emergency that's happened in the state as well. So he's had a pretty busy week, but he's going to talk to you guys about mobilizing volunteers and mobilizing the neighborhood. So we're very excited and lucky to have Jamie here today. Again, if everybody in the back can take a seat, here is Jamie.
Hello, everyone. She's right. I've been busy. I've been in a dark room for 10 hours a day since last Monday. So one of my roles with the state of Tennessee is that I coordinate volunteers and donations during disaster response. And we're still in the response phase. We haven't moved to a recovery phase. And so we have a lot of chainsaw teams and a lot of folks just east of here actually working up until dark every day. And Davidson County is fortunate. There's a lot of resources here, so they manage things locally, which is kind of a good segue into what you guys will do. You'll manage your issues locally also. And so over the years, I've been fortunate. I've worked with Mayor Dean. I've helped him coordinate volunteers for large events. When I'm not doing state things, I do things locally. Obviously, I can't function at a state level, otherwise I'd probably exhaust myself. So 2 years ago, I went through the Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership, and my master's focus was actually volunteer engagement and management, which I've been doing for 15 years now for various governors in various cities around the country, and decided to make Nashville my home, which I absolutely love this place. So I've done this for the flood, I've done this for tornadoes, I've done this as a wildland firefighter, and coordinating volunteers isn't about me, it's about everyone else. And so I don't like being in the limelight, I like engaging other people to take ownership over their own problems. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through several things. I actually created slides here that are more expansive than I need to talk about, but at least you can go back when these are posted on the website and have them as a resource. All right, so I started off with some basic things. Everyone's thinking, oh, we're talking about volunteering today. Well, we're not. So I'm going to move on. We also think it's community service. Well, I want to challenge you that it's not. What it is it's called, if I can get it to work, click, click. I think we have a little thing working there. Anyways, it's called service learning, and I can go on without the slides. So what service learning is pretty much like the third step in the process of volunteering. So service learning is where you actually bring together people with knowledge and experience, and you learn from them before you perform service. So that when you're performing service, you're actually doing something that's meaningful. One of the things is to ever do a presentation, always print your slides. So service learning by definition is a method of engagement that enriches learning by engaging citizens in meaningful service to their neighbors and their community. Service learning is used to make change. Volunteering, community service, those are things that you do to get things done. Service learning is what you use to make change. So service learning is a philosophy. It embraces people as a community resource and an asset. It views all people in a democratic society as citizens with the capacity to contribute no matter their age. The only way for change to actually work in your community is that, there we go. So here you go, you can see that. The only way for any change in your community to work is you have to intentionally gauge people that are different than you. You can't make anything work just because you want it to. I guarantee you, I've seen it fail, I've tested it, I've been a part of those groups. You have to have the most diverse group that you can possibly have if you want anything to ever happen. And when I mean diverse in the broadest, weirdest, craziest thing you can think of, because those people will bring something to the table that you'll never ever think of. And so what I want to talk about specifically is that there's different types of service. So what you're going to do is you're going to bring together collaborative leadership in your neighborhood, and you're going to engage those people to effectuate some kind of change. So there's different types of service. I like moving around, this is hard for me. So there's direct service, obviously, right? That's going to the council and that's actually doing something, asking for something, presenting something, getting your voice heard. There's indirect service. You know, a lot of introverts don't want to go stand in front of a microphone and ask people for something, but they will help you prepare that person to ask for whatever it is. Advocacy, we all know what that is. Mayor Dean just talked about transportation. I couldn't agree with that more. So we all have to raise our voice for that. And he's right. The voice was louder against it than it was for it, and that's why things didn't move forward. But when you fail, you learn better than when you succeed. And I think that's a very strong point. You got to realize when you are working in your neighborhoods and trying to focus your energy on a specific issue, you're not going to be successful every time, and that's okay. And if you know that going into it, I think you're going to have a better outcome either way. And then research. Obviously, if you don't have any data or evidence to back up your claim, it's just hearsay. So I'm not going to go through all this list. This is part of the rest of the presentation. But this is a nice set of volunteer engagement steps that you can look at as a process. This is actually a shortened process. And I've developed this from all the materials that exist through various clubs, from the actual certification for folks that are volunteer administrators, and from experts in the field that have been doing this for 30 or 40 years. So this is a nice shortened version that you can use. And so one of the things that people are always worried about is that they are told they have to manage someone. You're not going to manage anyone. You're going to engage your community. Because if you manage them, that means you're over them. If you engage them, that means you're with them. And so volunteer engagement is a whole different communication strategy. It's all about the words you use. We say a lot at the Institute that words matter. And I come from a communication background, and words do matter. What you say is very important, and what you ask of people is very important, because if you use language that is demeaning or forceful, you're just not going to get the kind of return that you want. So you can see here, even the word management and engagement, it essentially means the same thing, but it feels a lot smoother. And so I want you to think about how you say things when you go and ask people to do things. Obviously, you're not going to say, hey, I want to negotiate a volunteer role for you, but you negotiate a volunteer role for them and say, hey, I'm placing you here. Because that feels very restrictive, doesn't it? We don't want to restrict people to anything. We want to engage them and develop things built around who they are and what skills they bring to the table. So what volunteer engagement is, it's intentional. I think you've gotten that from what I said. It builds capacity. So it puts people in roles where they want to stick around, where they want to learn, and then they want to grow into different roles. It's very important that you match needs to the skills and talents of volunteers. I've done this from middle school students to adults. It's collaborative, inclusive, flexible, and reflective. Reflection is the most important of anything I'm going to tell you today, because if you're not constantly reflecting through your process, you're not learning. And if you're not learning, you're not staying in the moment, and you can't actually make the change that you need to make. All right, so we're a democratic society, and people always wonder, how are we going to engage our community to focus on an issue? I've done this in small arenas and large arenas. It's as simple as asking this entire room, if we had a whiteboard or Post-it papers, write down every issue that's important to you. Everyone. If it takes weeks, sometimes it takes weeks, write down every issue that's important to you. Once they're all on the board, give everyone 3 dots, 3 Post-its, 3 marks, and they get to vote for their issue. When they get their issue that's important, narrow it down to 5, do research, bring people to the table. What is the issue? Why is it important? All right, now that we've all said this, let people convince each other. And then obviously you want to do private voting. You don't want everyone voting, you know. So vote it down to 1 or 2 issues and focus on that for a year. Don't do it for a week. Don't do it just for the next council meeting. Take your time, do it, and do it right over a period of time where you're actually engaging people and providing leadership opportunities. All right, so this is the most important thing, is the expertise. I always say I know a little about a lot, but I'm an expert of nothing, and that's probably the truest thing I've ever said and will ever say. So, but there are people who know a lot about one thing, and that's okay. And those are the people that you want to bring in, because they're going to be your best source of evidence. They know the research. If you want to know about volunteering, ask me. I've probably read everything and still read everything. But that's one thing. I mean, there's so many things I have no clue about. So you need to identify folks in your area who can help you with these things. And so in your packet, you're going to see something called the Metro Nashville Neighbor Assessment Worksheet. I think you talked about this a little bit last week with Colby. The Neighbor Asset Worksheet is basically a skills assessment. These are very basic tools. I've been using these forever. It's how you use them that matter, not really what it does. These tools are taught you how to think differently. That's all they're meant to do. So what this does is it asks people what's important to them. And then you use these to engage that person. It's okay to have, go to a local restaurant and say, hey, let's figure out who has what skills. Just fill this out. I'm going to collect them. I'm going to save them. And then while you're organizing your group, go back to these and go, oh man, this person's just not motivated. Are they passionate about this issue? And you realize, no, they're not. And you're like, okay, well, they're passionate about creating art and music. Maybe they can make signs. So you can engage them for the skills they bring to the table. So that's something I thought was very useful. That sheet right there motivated students in California to ask the California state legislator to put money for arts and athletics in their budget, and they put $240 million in their budget for arts and athletics. I started with this. So it's all about the tools. So use the tools in the way that they best suit you. I'll provide these as Word documents. Please, you can change them all you want. Nothing static. So who has the time and energy? That's really one of the most important things. That is the leadership aspect of what we're talking about today. It is really hard to commit to something for a long period of time. So it might not be the most passionate person. It might be someone who is retired or has the means to not have to work. So find out who that is in your community who will commit to that time. It's okay to say, hey, will you commit a year to do this? It's to set that expectation, and then everyone kind of knows where everyone's going to be headed. All right. So also very important is motivation. That's something I find very interesting. We don't do anything without being motivated. We work because money motivates us. That's the number one motivation for why we work, because we need money. So what is it that motivates the people in your community? Some people are motivated because they get power and respect out of what they do. Personally, I don't care about that. I just care about people getting things done. So who are your key supporters? It's really good to find key supporters that live in your neighborhoods. It's always great to bring in outsiders, but the people in your neighborhood should be your best resource. And then hold regular meetings. Obviously, hosting at home has all sorts of risks. It's also expensive because you need to make food and buy food and have water and run the dishwasher 5 times if you have a lot of people, and So I always say go to a local business. I like to hold meetings at my favorite restaurants. They usually give us 30% off or free appetizers because I'm going to say I'm going to bring in 20 people that are going to sit down for 2 hours. They'll love that. Don't go to chains, please. I said that. Don't go to chains. Go to local restaurants. I know chains can be owned by people that live in the community, but really support local business too. And that's also a safe place. If you're in a public arena, I think people feel a little more likely to show up than at someone's home. Volunteer program. So what we're looking here, you want to achieve your vision. And in order to achieve your vision, you need to stay on it. And one of the most important things is roles and responsibilities. And so it's okay to say, hey, these are the things I think that need to be done for this to happen, but let's figure out together what are all the things that need to be done that can make this happen and who will do it. And there's the community service action plan. Sorry, I kind of named these special for today. So that's also something that's really good to use to figure out who's going to do what and when and what skills they bring. Again, these are just tools to help you think. Volunteer management is very simple. It's getting the right message out that's the hard part. So bringing people together is not that difficult if they're interested in the issue. Filling roles with the right people. I have this problem. I want to do everything all the time. I do because I know I'm able to, or that it's quicker for me to do it and it's going to take me forever to explain it. Well, that's just not true. So when you use the 2 tools I just spoke about, you'll be able to put the right people in the right positions. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't know how to get people. Obviously, face-to-face, the personal ask is always the strongest way to get someone in a role. Next door is great. Looks like I should have separated those words. Sunday service, if religion's important to you, I found that's a really good place if you just stand around and talk about something that's important to you. It's really amazing how that opens doors. Social media, and what other ways? There's other creative ways. This is not an exhaustive list, and it changes every day too with technology, which is kind of fascinating. So the skills-based assessment is something you can use to figure out the roles that you need. So you'll see here the word role. You want to adapt. You're going to create roles that you think people need to fill in order to get something done. However, you're going to find that a person doesn't fit the role, and that's exactly what you want. You want to tailor these to the people. And you can actually pull off a piece and put it somewhere else as long as it's going to get done. The goal here is it gets done, not that it gets done a very specific way. Creativity is what solves problems more than processes. So just some ideas on what motivates people. You can look at that later. Everyone is motivated by something different. And the asset sheet asks people, hey, what motivates you? And I would go back to this sheet and look at it and go, what? This person's not engaged. Why are they not engaged? Oh, I'm not motivating them the way they want to be motivated. So that was a really useful tool. I use it quite a bit still. I actually have it on my computer, and when I talk to people on the phone, sometimes I fill it out and just store it and go, oh, okay, if I ever want to engage that person, how do they want to be engaged? Have an agenda. Most people like structure. And you know, if you have an agenda and you go over, at least you have an agenda. So hands-on activities. What I wanted to do with the agenda that we had was actually work through some of these, but you'll be able to do that on your own. My sense of community is very different. I grew up in a neighborhood where they would close off the street. Everyone would bring these long tables in the road, and everyone would just, it was basically like a big Sunday party. But the point of that is everyone loves coming together around food. So if you get food, I think you're going to get people to come together. So there's a couple more tools there that you can see. I'm going to fly through. The reflection checklist, like I said, that's something really good to help achieve your vision because you're constantly checking where you're at. And as the leader in your neighborhood, you want to guide these people, guide your community members and your neighbors to solve their own problem. You're not really telling them what to do. So these are tools to help guide them, and you just want to do your assessment on an ongoing basis. And then just a few other things about recognition. I always like to say my grandfather served in World War II, and he said the only reason he made it through is because they got days off to party. I think that's still true. I think Americans really know how to party, so if you throw a good party, I think people will stay around. Different ideas for motivation, recognition. That's it. So I'm going to introduce Linda Peak-Schatt. She is the founding director for the Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership.
Hi, everybody. Did you have a great 2 weeks, even with the snow, working on your homework from the last session? I have 1 minute left on this session to actually get you to report back on some of what you did in your asset mapping. One of the things you did with asset mapping was to identify your human resources, your potential volunteers. And I have to say that nobody's better than Jamie at giving you the tools to use when you go back into your neighborhood to help match those volunteers and engage them in the things that motivate them and that move you toward your goal. Now let's talk about your goal. Who did the work? Who did the asset mapping? Who did their vision? And who would like to report for a minute? And then we have an exercise for those of you who want to stay to work on your both your vision and your branding and your assets. We're going to be doing more of that in the next session because obviously we got truncated in this two-hour session. And let me just say ahead of time before you report that at the next session, Stacy Levine, an architect and architectural historian and storyteller, is going to be working with us to help pull the stories of your neighborhood out and work them into your brand and into the communication you use to advance your vision. So first, who wants to either give us their vision or tell us what they learned in their asset mapping? I heard a lot of you raised your hands earlier, so let's see somebody. We promise we'll get you out in about 10 minutes, and then for those who want to stay and work on their vision with us, you can.
If you don't volunteer, I'm going to come up to you. And Frank, I'm looking right at you.
Okay, so you admitted you'd done your homework, but you didn't bring it with you. Is that what I understand? Okay, Frank? No, you don't want to be called on? All right. Somebody else?
Come on, a brave soul.
All right, I was misinformed. I heard that several of you raised your hand and were ready to share. So if that's the case, that you're not going to share, and it may be because it's 7:30 and time for you to go home, and I certainly understand that. But for those of you who want to stay, we'll get you a head start on working on your vision and how you use your assets to put together a branding statement. Yes, we have, Jeff wants to talk.
We're going to give it to Jeff.
Okay, good, Jeff.
Well, a vision would be to have the community be able to come together and use what is already in place to grow. I think Frank is not going to speak right now, but I think working with Frank on a brand to find that is a challenge, because you got to find out what works specific to your community, because what may work for Frank's community doesn't work for mine. What works for mine may not work for his.
Okay, I want to make that a little more granular. Oh, you've got, so you have a vision?
Some of the things that work in our community is reaching out to the departments of metro government to have those resources where we can see the progress being made in there, such as the traffic calming, such as having the stop signs implemented for safety, such as we want sidewalks. We want sidewalks. But I think getting the community to come together and have a vision to keep something going after I'm not in the leadership role in Fairlane Park, and to get more people engaged, I would love to see that happen.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is there's a picture of the future that includes sidewalks and includes a more robust leadership that has your successor in place.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, and so to get that more robust leadership and a successor in place, what's one thing you need to do?
We need to get more people engaged.
Right, right. And maybe using some of what you just heard from Jamie and that you know instinctively. And sometimes when we put things up on a PowerPoint, you know, it looks like, well, I knew that. But sometimes it helps just to look at it in some of the tools like Jamie offered. But matching up your potential leaders with the roles that are important to bringing about that vision. And if it's sidewalks, put somebody in charge of figuring out how to get sidewalks. I mean, what's the message? Who are the people you have to deliver it to? You know, can the Nashville Civic Design Center help in the work that they're doing as they look at the work with the mayoral candidates? Make sure that you're touching all the bases to create that vision.
We have Lindsay from Salem Town.
Hi, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the identifying assets that you were mentioning. We've been very fortunate in Salem Town to have an incredibly active association over the last we're actually on our 10-year anniversary this year. So we kind of knew what our assets were going into place, but just some examples of that is we have a professional Nashville event planner that lives in our neighborhood. He does the Nashville Pride Fest and the East Nashville Tomato Fest. So we were able to bring him on board last year when we started the Salem Town Halloween Block Party, which had, I think, over 800 attendees on that terrible Halloween night when it was like gross outside. So you can just imagine what it could be. And so that's just kind of one way that we tapped into that resource. Another was last year we took on like kind of a big rebranding effort with our neighborhood association, and so we were fortunate enough to have a web designer who lived in the neighborhood and donated her time to help us create this great website that's very streamlined, and to even kind of share some of her expertise with me enough to where I can get on and tinker and manage. So, I mean, I think you can have people in your neighborhood that are just great for, like, let's organize this potluck dinner, or let's do this one thing, but you can also kind of tap into these people that have these kind of broad skills and bring that in to create some growth.
Anybody else? Yes.
We had Frank. This is Frank from Hip Donaldson.
One of the things that I think everybody's heard of the Hip Donaldson Farmers Market, and one of the things that we were able to gain our folks from our assets in the community. Number one, it started on our Facebook page by people in the community saying, we want a farmer's market. We want a farmer's market, and we heard that constantly. And we also heard we want a community garden at the same time. So what we did is we met in the church, and we had 2 rooms assigned and a leader in each room, and said, if you want a community garden, you go here. If you want a farmer's market, you go here. And that's kind of how that started. So the farmers market success is because it's something the community wanted, and the majority of those volunteers that night are still volunteers today in the market. It takes 18 people every Friday to put that market on.
And nothing succeeds like success, and people want to stay working with you because the farmers market has been such a hit. And I have to compliment you here, and also the first farmers market in the area to figure out a way to use corporate funding to double SNAP benefits for those people who would buy fresh vegetables and fruits with their double benefits. So, I mean, kudos to you for getting government and business and nonprofits together to support your community. Are there others? We have one back here. Great.
So far, what I've heard is from the 3 people that have spoken so far is that apparently they don't have that much of a problem engaging their community. Our HOA has been in business for about 1.5 years now, when the developer finally turned it over to us. We have about 105 homes in our area. Within the last month, we finally were able to get 3 people to volunteer for something. We've practically got down on our knees, and I tell you, I'm not one to get down on my knees and beg people for anybody. That's not my personality. But you can't get anyone in our area to step up to the plate. We can't do it. Sergeant Fernandez even came to one of our regular general meeting saying, people, this is what I can do for you if you're willing to have a neighborhood watch. Can't get anyone for that. I can't get anyone for anything. Yet and still, they have absolutely no problem complaining about something, okay? We didn't get the ice off the street fast enough during the last week. Well, we couldn't get the ice off the street fast enough because even the ambulance was just sliding down the street past my house, okay? We couldn't do it. And if we ask for volunteers, the first thing out of their mouths, well, we don't have time. If they don't have time to volunteer, but yet still they have time to complain. And I've just about reached the point of saying, I don't need to deal with this anymore because I'm tired of it. I don't know how to correct the situation. Oh, Ben, yeah.
I'm going to ask Jamie to come up here and respond quickly to that, but I also, I think the process, were you at the first session? Okay, I think the process of, and you've had a hard time getting them to volunteer, do you think you'll have a hard time getting them just to answer some questions or to come to one meeting where they'd identify the needs in the community? Give them a session so they complain about the ice. I mean, you know, I'm only half kidding there, you know. If we actually had a homeowners association because the ice wasn't cleared, and it got people out who had never shown up before. But could you do something that would at least give them a chance to voice their needs and concerns, and then turn around and create a vision that addresses those concerns and see if they would volunteer to help create that vision? I think it's really hard when you're asking people to volunteer if they don't know what they're volunteering to help create, you know, and
We've done that. We even tried a whole meeting to get everybody together in the community.
yeah.
Last time we held one, nobody showed up.
Yeah, let's see if the group has, I think the best asset we have right now to help you is in this room. So I see 4 hands up to give you some ideas.
My point is that you said that the homeowners association just got turned over to you, which means, in fact, it's a true living homeowners incorporation. That there's some responsibility that goes along with this organization. You collect fees and dues, and yeah. So that's going to be another level of difficulty you have. But the only way to get anybody to do anything is to find out what their self-interest is. And I think he spoke to it in a different fashion. But it's a door-to-door, person-to-person, find out where they've been, where they want to go, and then find a place for them to fit in. And I'm sorry for your difficulties. But you aren't the only one. I've heard this 60 times if I've heard it 600 times.
And Don, we can work with you too, but you know, going back to what Jamie said about everybody likes to party. Sometimes it's good to have a session that's maybe not a formal meeting, but more of a sort of enjoyment kind of event, and let them all get together and talk to each other, and then at that point start getting a little more socialization going on. It was for the socialization. And nobody came? Let's talk offline, Don. Maybe we got some ideas for you.
There's one more, and then I'm going to give you some tips and homework for the next branding and storytelling session for the vision of your communities, okay?
Don,
yes, one more.
Don, I'll give you more of my experience. I'm Mike Norris. I live at Creekside of Brentwood at Nippers Corner. It's a townhouse community, about 145 units. Well, part of the problem that I see that our homeowners association hasn't functioned from the day it was turned over. We can't even get a quorum together to do anything. We got board directors been in place for 9 years. Part of the problem I think is in our community is we got all these absentee owners that are renting out their units. And they were not even in the state. And they could care less about coming to a home. I actually went door to door, literally, to 140 units. I knocked on the door and asked people to give me their proxy, okay, so that we could come together and have an election of a new board of directors, okay. I collected over 35, 40. I went to the meeting, said, here's my proxies, I'm bringing all the board directors proceeded to have an election, re-elected themselves, and said that 60% of my proxies were invalid because those people weren't up on their dues or fees or whatever, and that you know, we needed to have another meeting to get a quorum together. It's ridiculous. How can you run any organization? Oh, and I asked for the results of this election. That was confidential information, would never be revealed.
Homeowners associations are hard, but there's actually some things that we can do. I mean, what we're not focusing on right now is the assets, right, Linda? And that's what we really need to be focusing on.
Let's do that.
And that's what we can really work toward building around. So let's talk a little bit more offline too. Linda?
And thanks. So here's what I want you to think about for next time. Answering the questions, obviously, that we gave you in the first session, but think about pulling them together in this way. The way you can get to the best vision for your neighborhood or your community is first to say, we will meet these needs of our community by creating a vision for the future that looks like this. That forces you to look at the needs before you actually develop the vision. What I want you to do, what we were going to do over here, is put your vision as it exists right now in the middle of a circle. And then out from that circle, every asset that you have discovered, just as fast as you can, put around that circle. What that will help you do is determine the words and the picture that you need to draw. Now let me give you an example from Jeff. What I heard Jeff say when in just the conversation that we've had, and frankly in conversations we've had before, was that what he wants to create and what he believes his neighbors want is a safe, walkable neighborhood with sustainable leadership. So, or with a sustainable leadership organization. Remember what I said last time about a vision. It's got to be achievable, it's got to be aspirational, it's got to be inspirational. The inspiration we can work on, but in his case, you know, we can come up with language about why it's important to have a safe, walkable neighborhood and the picture of the future that that could bring. One of the best campaigns that I ever saw was nothing but pictures. And it was a political campaign. It was from the mayor of Paris. And all he did was have beautiful pictures of people enjoying Paris. The museums, the parks, the boulevards, and all it said was Chirac's Paris. So if Jeff thinks in terms of what are the pictures that both literal photographs of what people could be doing around the neighborhood, showing people walking, showing people in the park, and safely in the park. If all he did was figure out a way to show those pictures and say, here are the steps that we need to take to get there, then he would have gone a long way toward a very clear, achievable, aspirational vision. So I'm just suggesting that between now and the next time we meet, use what is called writing from the right side of your brain. That's what that circle in the middle of a paper with your vision there, and then everything that you've discovered that's an asset. Human, business, structural, historical, architecture, all of the assets that you have. The farmer's market, the Halloween event, all of those things, because you're gonna, you know, Salem Town 2 years ago wouldn't have had the Halloween event, but they would have had that they have event planners and they have web designers as part of the assets in their community. I am very aware that this truncated version of the session has put us even later than we promised you. And so I'm just going to invite all of you to bring your stories to the next session, to do that one-page circle graphic for the next session. And for those of you who want to stay for 20 minutes, I'll work with you with the flip chart sheets on the wall here to begin your process. Thank you so much, and we look forward to your stories at the next session.
And as a reminder, and I'll come up here and do this up here. As a reminder on the contact sheets that you guys have, all of the materials are online. The video will be online as well on the website that's listed on the form. So if you missed anything, you want to go back and review anything, you want to show this to your neighborhood, you want to work with some of your neighborhood, at least a few that are active, and start talking about your assets and how you can start organizing around those assets. These videos are available for you guys to download and use. So thank you so much for coming. March 14th, Saturday, 9 a.m., we'll do the full long version. We will start with the Lipscomb's portion at the beginning like normal, and we really appreciate you guys coming, and we'll see you on March 14th. Thanks, guys.